Welcome to another edition of Active Living at the Orion Center. You may wonder why we are standing in front of this Cobra helicopter. Well, this is a special edition of Active Living where we visit the American Legion Veterans Museum on Drainer Road in Oxford, Michigan. Our host today will be Jim Parkhurst, who has been one of the driving forces behind this wonderful museum. The idea for this museum started as far back as 1993, when veterans were looking for uniforms to wear in a local parade. The idea grew from there to collecting all forms of memorabilia from various military encounters. In 1997, the veterans raised money to build enclosed showcases to display the items collected. The items included uniforms, guns, model airplanes, a real Cobra helicopter, which is behind me, flags, model ships, photos, and just about anything imaginable from various conflicts, including the Revolutionary War. The museum was officially dedicated in March 1998 with statewide American Legion officers present and was declared a World War II and Korean 50th anniversary museum in documents signed by the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense. Let's take a step into the past where Jim Parkhurst will give us a tour of the museum.
We'd like to welcome you here at the Oxford American Legion Post 108 Military Museum. We're going to take a step back into the past, and I want you to join me. We're going to point out a few things today, and we'll start with this uniform directly behind me. Everything you're looking at inside the showcase is the real thing. We've got one that's a reproduction uniform. It's the red, white, and blue Revolutionary War uniform up here. And this gentleman that wore this marched in all the parades of Washington, D.C., and it was represents the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812. As we move across, we've got uniforms that represent the Union and the Confederacy inside. There are many weapons. You can see all the artifacts that are inside the showcase. This uniform, the Spanish-American War, was worn by Sebastian Borscht. He lived right on the borders of Orion and Oxford townships in the far west corner. He was from the Spanish-American War, that uniform. As we move across, there are several World War I uniforms inside the showcases, but this one's kind of an important one that's right here in front of me. Just this gentleman wore this uniform during the Spanish-American War on the USS Juventa, and again, he stayed in through World War I, stayed in the United States Navy. They mothballed the ship in 1921. In 1922, they decided to make it an aircraft carrier called the USS Langley. As you can see on the hat, it says the USS Langley. That aircraft carrier had bi-wing planes that flew on it. Most of the guys were crop dusters that manned those aircraft, and was used in the early part of World War II. Got a French Hotchkiss 1914 machine gun that's inside the showcase. You can see the belt link that's inside. There are several flags inside of here. And we also have something special coming up here this summer on August the 3rd here in Oxford, and many of you in the Orion area know the Lone Ranger, Brace Beamer. We've got a picture of him inside the showcase, and it tells about him and some of the things he did during World War I. He was a veteran from that time period. He was about 14 and a half years old when he entered the service and was discharged at around 18 years old. But we've got some information on him, and that's going to be our days coming up on August the 3rd with a big parade here. As we move along, there's a lot of neat uniforms inside the showcases. This one, she was a nun right out here at St. Mary's on Drainer Road. Served as a nurse, visiting nurse, worked out around this area with veterans that came home from World War I. She worked out of the Blue Star Mothers Camp. Blue Star Moms Camp was down in Lake Orion off Drainer Road. The building still stands, the old log cabin is still there today. And that was a place where veterans could come home and get rehabilitated. Visiting doctors and nurses and family could come and visit those guys until they were back on their feet. As you can see, there are several other World War I uniforms in here. We're going to move over to this section, which starts into the World War II section. This is a Marine Corps flag, and somebody says, oh no, it's not the normal red one that you see, but it says the United States, it says Department of Navy, United States Marine Corps. That's the color of the flag that was used during World War II. Sometime around between World War II and the Korean War, they come out with a vintage flag that you now see, and everybody knows is the Marine Corps flag, which is red. We have a model that's down here. It's the USS Arizona in the bottom. It's about 5.5 feet long, all made out of balsa wood. It's quite a feat to sit and make one of those. The guy was a Boy Scout, lived in Lake Orion. When he moved, he donated that here to the museum. You can see the gentleman's white captain's uniform. Commander Cullen, who was at the time and also a captain, was aboard the USS Arizona until about 1940. We are kind of unique in the respect that this museum has been dedicated to World War II and a Korean War 50th anniversary museum by the Secretary of Defense. We have all the certificates and the paperwork to go with it, signed by them and the President. We have various medals and highly collectible items that are locked inside the showcase as well. And when you come up, there's a couple of neat things I can point out at this direction, but you're not going to see it too well from the camera. The battleship Missouri is setting up here on the front. They're exact same scale as the Yamato in back, which was the largest warship during World War II that the Japanese had. And you can see how huge that thing was compared to our warship. Scale models of Jeeps, we've got history books, there's patch collections within the showcase. There's 97 volumes about the Civil War inside. Occasionally we let students borrow those for special projects and they get returned, and so it's a great thing. I'd also like to mention last week we had 210 students from the Lake Orion School District out of Oakview, and Jillian Fuller was in here with many of the other teachers from the classroom. They paid us a visit, and we get lots of students visiting us all the time. We're going to start right here in the corner. We get a lot of input from students that come through and the younger people that visit us on Friday nights. There's a Cheerio box in the corner down here. This gentleman, Ray Brown, lives, he's a member here of our post and lives up by North Branch. But he's an Olympic wheelchair champion, a shot put thrower, and he's on the Cheerios box. We have a lot of flags you'll notice with all the ribbons and medals. These are burial flags that families have had and brought them in. We put them on display. There's a machine gun that's directly behind me. It's a 1918 German Maxim machine gun. It's up here on display if you can see in the showcases. And also like to mention the United States Navy Seabees. We've got a few Seabee guys in the area that are here, and it's a nice plaque that's up there on display. A lot of the uniforms behind me, these are all World War II. There's one special one. I'm going to switch positions on this side. This one right here, it's got a red beret. It's the Devils Brigade. Man's name was Drake, lived here in Oxford, moved up by Elmont, in that area by Elmont and Emily City. He was with the Jungle Corps, was trained that way. Apparently got in trouble, and they were comprised of guys that were in the stockade. They were on death row, a lot of these guys, and there were British and Americans and Australians. They gave them the chance to earn their freedom. And there again, these guys, better than half of them didn't come back home alive. They were shot up and lost in action, and he happens to be one of them that made it back home. He was wounded but came back alive, and that's the red beret that they wore and the true ribbon, or shoulder fleurage, I should say, that's on the shoulder. We got the P-51 Red Tail Mustang planes up here. The Tuskegee Airmen flew those, and kind of neat to have that on display. A lot of World War II uniforms in here, various ones from the Marine Corps, 82nd Airborne. This one here is kind of unique too. It's got a POW medal on the front. He made the jump in the night before with the 82nd Airborne, and their mission was to put landing lights in for glider planes. And he made the jump right in the middle of a bunch of Germans. He was wounded and captured and spent 3 years in a German prison camp. We have all this paperwork. It's on display. We have inside the showcases, there's lots of women's uniforms, and I'll point on a couple of them here. We have a black veteran's uniform from World War II, the tan one, and directly behind is United States Coast Guard. She was my fifth grade school teacher here in Oxford, but lived in Orion, Mrs. Copeland. And kind of neat, she was in the United States Coast Guard band, was trained as a nurse, and when the war broke out for World War II, volunteered to be a nurse aboard transport ships for the United States Navy coming back, which was kind of unique. A lot of World War II stuff in here. There's a lot of various patches. There's probably 1,000 patches on display inside the showcases. This one up here was the Amphibious Corps of the United States Marine Corps. It's got 3 stars. It's got the alligator head on it. It's kind of unique. As we move along, there's a white uniform in the center up here. It's the United States Army band uniform. That's out of the 1930s. Somebody asked about the uniform inside before. It's got the little beret with the red top knot. It's a Royal Canadian Legion uniform up here. And there's a Royal Canadian Army uniform in one of the other showcases. As we move down into this section right here, we have students give us a lot of ideas, and over the years they want to know what the other side looked like that we were fighting against. And there's a Japanese soldier's uniform in here. There's a German Kriegsmarine submariner captain's uniform. And no, they didn't have all those medals. Various medals have been brought in as souvenirs that guys brought back from World War II, and everything is numbered in here, by the way, in this showcase. Just like a large museum. It's all unrecorded information in the computer. It's kind of unique. There's some airplanes here in the showcases in the top. The blue one up there's a Japanese Zero. Somebody, well, how come it's blue? The kids always ask us that. Well, on the aircraft carriers, the bottom side was white. If they were flying up above and you were down in an airplane below them on a, say, a P-51 looking up, it looked like clouds. And if you were above looking down, that color blue matched the ocean. Same thing holds true for the German Messerschmitt. On Africa, the sky looked kind of blue color like that, and as you looked up and you were looking up out of your cockpit flying, you'd see you couldn't pick them out of the sky because it was blue. And of course, the other side is a sandy brown that looks like the desert sand of Africa. So there's a lot of informational things inside the showcases. We had a guy come here. He was about a month ago, brought that Korean jacket in from 1953. It's all hand painted on the back, which is unique. Kind of a souvenir type thing. Various pictures inside the showcases, long pictures. There's pillowcases across. There's about 75 pillowcases and roughly 75 airplanes inside the showcases, model airplanes. We're lucky to have a general's uniform in here. This gentleman, Dick Fuller, grew up right here in Oxford, was a member of this post, was in the Army all those years, and when he transferred with the reserve unit down to New Mexico, Dick down there went down as a colonel and became a one-star general. Took over as a general of the reserves and the National Guard and the Border Patrol, and as a Home Guard, he was appointed a two-star general. So we have his uniform here on display. In back, there's a Captain's West Point uniform, and it's on display right down to the shiny West Point emblem on the hat and the tar. They call them a tar bonnet. It's kind of unique just to have that. Somebody talked about there's a flag in here. You can see it's the orange and black flag. That's the Agent Orange flag. You don't see it much anymore, but it represents all the guys that was exposed to PCB and Agent Orange chemicals and stuff in Vietnam and other various parts of the world. But it's a unique flag in itself. There's a 1966 Australian dress uniform in here. He served in Vietnam. Just in front of it is another uniform that came in here about a month ago. First Sergeant, United States Army, had almost 30 years in. It was EOD and DOD. Served in different parts of the world. I guess she was been in Iraq and Afghanistan, also in Korea. Kind of really unique uniform. As we move this way a little bit, I'll move out of the way, and I know you're going to get a good picture of this. This black and white picture tells the story of Vietnam. The top looks like foliage, but when you take a second glance at it, it's actually all the units that served in Vietnam. It shows the Vietnam Wall, the black wall. You always say the shadowy people and the soldiers are coming out. Well, in this picture, they're actually walking back out into the jungle to save the POWs and MIAs, the wounded guys. Shows the medvac chopper down below and one of the Hueys flying what they call a roundup, flying around for cover fire. And you can see the cobra snakes and Bengal tigers, and pretty much if you take a good look at it, it tells the whole story of Vietnam. This one next to it is just represents the 2nd Infantry Division. They were one of the old units that served this country back from World War I right up to present day, and they're in Afghanistan right now. So there's a lot of uniforms within the showcase. I can just kind of point out there's one with a purple beret. It has a green beret with it. He served 28 and a half years as a Green Beret. His name was Chuck McGill. Mr. Hamilton up here was one of the vice presidents of the Oxford Bay. It's in the tan uniform that's in here. We have standing over here on this next to the American flag. It's a complete uniform of one of the Rocky Rangers, one of Hussein's elite Rangers. It had the black beret. You can see the coveralls and right down to the boots and all the field gear. That's kind of unique in itself. And you can see again, if you look and see all the model airplanes in the top of the showcases, there's bi-wing planes, B-17s, P-40s, they're all up here on display. In this showcase, there's a lot of various items of combat gear. This is a chopper pilot's outfit. He flew Hueys and Cobras and Apache helicopters and put 30 years in the military flying helicopters. And there's various unit patches up here out of Campbell's Barber Shop. They were all framed. There's 6 big frames. There's like 500 patches. They're all framed. We've got a ghillie suit that the snipers wore and still wear today. It's on display. You can see some of the stuff up here. Bud Baber's uniform from Lake Orion was a pilot. As we move on to the next section, this one was a lot of ideas. Kids wrote ideas down as they visited the museum over the years. This first one, this is a Marine Corps, United States Marine Corps combat uniform from World War II. Right down to the chutes, right the shoelaces, there's Tommy guns in there. All the field gear that they wore from World War II is displayed. The next one has the Korean War. It displays all that gear, the gas mask. It's got the grease gun in there. You'll see the next one from the Vietnam era. It has all the machine gun ammo wrapped around the shoulders, which is not doing it justice. There should be about 3 more bandoliers because every guy that went on patrol supplied ammo for the M60 machine gun. And then again, when you look at the tan one down there, the Desert Storm colored one, that was from Desert Storm itself. We've got represented in there 4 different eras of war, right down to the shoelaces, the flak vests, everything that those guys wore, and the various weapons. A lot of small artifacts inside the showcases. And there's smaller models on display. Okay, in this next showcase, some various flags in it. The Oxford Pets Association flag is in here, and a lot of the guys from Lake Orion were part of that unit. It had a ruptured duck emblem on the flag itself. Can't see it very well in here as it's displayed right now. Bob back here, one of the camera guys, just asked me what this was. This was a training round for a 105 howitzer, sometimes referred to as a dummy round. It was made out of wood. It was just used for practice loading and unloading. And it stands right here. Again, we have an Australian uniform. This is combat gear from about 1968. It's in here with a Mark IV bolt-action 303 rifle. Various combat style uniforms from coveralls. If you go up here, the white uniform on the top row, you can see is a 10th Mountaineer Snow Ski Division that has wolf's hair around it with the glasses they wore, and they used snow skis and snowshoes. The one here in the front has a red patch. I went to school with Clifford Chrisman. Cliff was a machine gunner. It's called a Comanchero gunner. He was one of the gunners in one of those helicopters that we showed you earlier doing a roundup in that black and white picture. So he fired the machine gun out the side door. As we go to the top up here, there's the one with the orange striped helmet. That's a 3rd Armored Cavalry Chopper pilot's uniform, right down to the Mae West vest they used. The next one's a B-17 pilot's uniform. The sheepskin line has the Mae West. Chief's uniform with the orange flotation vest on it from World War II. And then this one down here is a mechanic from World War II, patched bullet holes and kept the fighter pilot planes running. And we're going to move down to the next section. As we move into this is kind of a organizational one, and I say that because it represents all the things that we have within our post. We have AMVET's uniforms on display, the VFW, the American Legion, the Ladies Auxiliary in the blue, which is from the VFW. We have the American Legion Auxiliaries history books from our post. All our post history books are in here. The one on the top, you can't see it very well. It's got a big black plumed hat and a black coat. That's hand sewn, hand stitched, came from the Grand Army of the Republic, the GAR. And we have the charter from there, the copy of it. And Oxford became the district post in the later days, around 1930s to 39. The last member was a 1936 year from Oxford, and his wife passed away in 1939, who turned the records in. If the medal that's on the front there looks like the Medal of Honor on the left, if you have one of those in your possession, you can check the records out on the edge of the star. It's serial number. It's worth about 150 bucks if you have one of those, and it's special because after the Civil War, the bronze cannons from the Confederacy that were captured were melted down, and they made those medals to give these guys, which is really unique. We've got lots of stuff in here. The Boy Scouts, we've sponsored Boy Scouts and things like that, baseball since about 1920 after World War I. We've also sponsored the American Legion baseball teams. From Lake Orion, we have the 82nd Highlanders Bagpipe Corps. One of the uniforms on display. Doc McNeil and all those guys were participated. Bernice Loeb wore this uniform. Bernice was a member from the beginning until she was about 87 when she passed away. But again, there's various things in here. It's kind of unique. Again, we want to thank everybody for coming today. Stop down and see us anytime. The museum's always free to look up. It's open every day. You can stop in. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. And I'm usually here every Friday night from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Or if you'd like to make an appointment, call the post, set up something. And if you got a class, we'll try to get you through. And you can bring a class in just to look at stuff. We've had the Oxford and Orion Lions Club in here. So stop by and pay a visit. Glad you stopped by today. Thank you again.